All right, welcome to another episode of Hoops in the P.N.W. Really excited today to have I like to consider him a colleague of mine in Wesco 4A, but head coach Brian Hill from Glacier Peak. And we're going to continue our local trend, and I wanted to get him on board. We've been kind of jokingly exchanging text messages about the satellites and tuning in and so on and so forth, and maybe that's been a little bit of my apprehension of getting him on. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss out on getting his face on board and so on and so forth. Not that we can't do the audio route, because we did that with GC and it worked out just fine. But he has been somebody that as they've made that transition to 4A, I've gotten to know way better than before. And in our league, we've had some consistent battles head to head for the last several years. They've been a lot of fun and been great for our programs. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with him today and talking about some hoops and his program specifically, maybe a little bit of the run and jump stuff too. Do you consider yourself a run and jump guy?
Right now I do. I mean, That's kind of one of the things our team does, but it changes with the personnel.
Yeah, sure. So we'll get into that a little bit. And, certainly the success that they've had, I think is something that we can all lean on in terms of, how to approach your kids and coach them up, and at the same time still have fun along the way. And I think they've certainly done that in his tenure there. So Coach Hill, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Hey, thanks, Randy. This is pretty neat what you got going on here with interviewing all the different coaches and hearing all the different things that they have to say. So maybe there's something someone could take from this.
Awesome. I think that's been the plan. And as we talked about off air, there's been something from every single episode that we've done so far that I've taken from, and that's been pretty consistent. So selfishly, it's been a lot of fun for me, and hopefully, again, as you said, others have gotten some things out of it along the way. Let's get some history. So I know you can play a little bit. In fact, you've hurt yourself playing a little bit from what I know, but give us some background. Maybe you're interested in the game. Were you a player? Some of your coaching background. Let's give our listeners a chance to kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I wish I was a player back in the day, but I really wasn't. I got a sad basketball history. It's I got cut in 7th grade. I got cut in 8th grade. And I was at a junior high, so it was 7th. Sure. I made the 9th grade team just because there was 11 people trying out. There's 12 spots. So I never saw the floor. I think I got a total of maybe 3 or 4 minutes for the whole season.
Right.
And then I went to Federal Way High School, and we were a 3-year school, 10, 11, 12. And I made JV as a sophomore. And I think I got a solid maybe 3 or 4 minutes for that season. And then my junior year, made JV. And 3 days before our very first game, I knew I was going to start. I was ready to go. Coach got mad, walked out of practice, told everybody to go home. And I said, no, let's stay here and let's keep going. And so I ran a couple drills with the rest of the team, and Coach came back and he's like, I told you to go home, and why are you still here? And I said, Coach, this is what we've done. I got him doing this. And he goes, Hill, that's the kind of leadership we need. And he takes over the practice again. And the very next drill was a 3-on-2, 2-on-1. I come down and I blow out my ankle, and that was my whole season. I missed my whole junior year for the most part. I got to play in our rivalry game against Thomas Jefferson, which was our second to last game. And I got in the game, and we were 30 seconds into the game, and I come down and I grab a rebound. I came around and I took an elbow to the nose. I had blood all over my jersey. And so that was my junior year.
Nice.
Then my senior year, Coach, I'm ready, I'm out there ready to play. And Coach goes, why are you here? He goes, I'm not going to keep you. And if I do, you'll never play. And I'm like, but I showed up and I put in my time for tryouts because that's what I do. And I got cut. And I get it. I graduated with 4 pro athletes from that program.
Sure.
One played football, one played basketball. Donnie Marshall played for the Cavs, and another player played MSL soccer. So there are 4 pro athletes there, and I was just a small little white guy and not as athletic as I am now.
Yikes.
But, so I ended up actually. It's funny because I lettered in diving.
Okay.
And not basketball, which are both winter sports, and so everybody thinks, "Oh, you played basketball in high school," and I really didn't.
Hey, so you're one of us. I like that. That chalks it up on my side. I like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of my basketball playing career. But then I grew, and I I just love the game. So I kept playing and playing and playing. I turned into a gym rat and got pretty good and started teaching and coaching at the same time.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Now, I like to think of my history too. So I made it my 7th grade year. Now to give some context with those Federal Way years, those teams that know Washington State boys basketball history, Federal Way, a power. So
yeah, they were legit.
You have some credibility there. There's no doubt about that. I like to say the same thing. I can't claim Federal Way type of success, but I like to think that I was in a tough class, but I got cut my 8th and 9th grade years, made it my sophomore year because we had 4 teams. So I was there was freshman and C team at the time. So I made C team, which was cool. And then of course got cut my junior year and figured out I was going to be a distance runner. So same kind of idea though, but still had a lot of passion for the game and interest. And I don't know but outside of maybe intramurals at Eastern and Wazoo was probably my extent of hoops. I didn't grow. I would like to have, but coaching wise though, did you have any influences maybe early on that kind of steered you towards hoops?
Well, I think just sitting on the bench and watching the game,
sure,
and in practice, standing against the wall, I was just practice. I watched a lot.
Yeah, sure.
I was trying to learn, so when I did have an opportunity, I could make the most of my opportunity. So because I knew, back then, coach puts you in. If you screwed up, you're right back up. And so I knew I couldn't screw up. And so I watched and I watched and I watched and I tried to figure it out. And then I couldn't just watch one position because I don't know where coach is going to put me. I had to try to figure out all 5 positions. So I was trying to do as much learning as I could. And, and then as time comes around, you're not playing intramurals anymore because you're not in college. And you love the game. So you start coaching and you start putting things together. And it's like, oh, I kind of remember that. And I'm still a student of the game. I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can. So that's why I appreciate all of these.
Sure. Now, high school wise, coaching wise, give us some context. Now, you boys coached for a little bit and then hopped over to the girls side?
Yeah. When I first started teaching, I taught at Sahali Middle School in 7th grade. It was a 7th grade or middle school in Federal Way, but I was the 7th grade boys coach, and it was a non-cut program. So I had 30 to 40 boys that I was coaching 7th grade.
Oh, geez.
And they had that 5th quarter, so everybody gets to play.
Everybody gets to play, yep.
Try to manage 30 some odd boys. And it was a circus. It was a zoo.
Yeah.
But I realized teaching middle school wasn't for me. So from Sahali, I went to Mount Si.
Got it.
And I was the assistant coach there under Garrick Phillips, who's now the head coach at U-High in Spokane.
Gotcha. Yep.
Good job with them. And I learned a lot from Garrick. I just trying to, again, a student of the game, just trying to watch what he does and figure out what's going on because I never had that opportunity to play. So I got to kind of learn on and try to put those pieces together to coach it. After 3 years with Mount Si boys, I moved to Centralia, and the only thing open was girls basketball JV, and I'm like, I coach boys. And I think a lot of people, as male coaches, sometimes I think that's kind of the thing. It's like I'm a guy's coach, I'm a boys coach, and the late Rick Harden, he passed away about 10 years ago now, but he convinced me. He goes, "Come on, you got nothing else to do. Let's go." And so I started coaching girls basketball JV at Centralia, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why I would ever want to coach boys again.
Yeah, sure.
It's just different. Girls will listen to you and they'll work hard and they get better and they're excited for their successes and learn from their mistakes and failures and just keep working hard. There's other issues, don't get me wrong, but I love coaching the girls. But I was only there for a year, and I took the head coaching position at Hazen High School for 2 years. And my first year as a varsity head coach, we were terrible, and we struggled. And we finished the season 2-17, but I did get one of those wins back. So I'm really 16, and that was we played Chief Self, but that was cheating, and so I got a win by default on that one.
Yeah.
But after that season, it was, do I really want to do this again? And I'm not sure. And decided to do it again, and I got a new JV coach, and that was GC Hilburn,
Nice.
who you interviewed earlier, and
Yep.
he was a former student of mine at Mount Si, and probably had the same kind of basketball history, just not a
Right.
very athletic basketball guy, but loved the sport. And I was like, God, I need this guy because I know how much he loved basketball
Yep.
and his knowledge of the game, so he could help me out. And so the second year we did great. We flipped that program around and went 14-6, I
Nice.
think.
That's monumental.
Yeah. And then left Hazen, came up to Snohomish, where I got to work under Ken Roberts for 3 years, and kept developing my game as a coach. And I would love to. And then after 3 years with Snohomish, Glacier Peak opened up, and Ken wrote me a raving letter of recommendation. Somehow or another, I got the job. So
Yeah,
it's been great since. Yeah.
love it. So, different paths to get to ultimately where you are, and certainly, as we've probably talked about, with a few of us that have done some different things, you've pulled some different things from your experiences, both on from your different places of location, but also coaching the boys and the girls side of things. You'd be able to carry those things forward. And it's interesting to kind of, when you start to get to those different connections, mentioning GC, and of course, Ken's been a constant on these, as well. Just that influence and why certain coaches and programs have been successful. There's been some popular threads. The funny thing is, you talk about GC not being able to play. He said he was the best screener in the program, I think, as a player.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But, from myself to you to GC to those that, as much as we loved to play or would have wanted to play, it didn't discourage us from wanting to pursue the game, as a coach. I still had a passion for it. And I don't know if you can say that necessarily about your high school coach, but I know that our varsity coach, Mike Lowry, and if we know the Lowrys here in this area, that name in terms of basketball, boys basketball in particular, is notorious. And he was so good to me, even though, he cut me twice and I never played for him personally, but he never discouraged my passion for the game. Like he didn't, and so I think that's why I kind of stayed connected with it. And ultimately I wanted to coach to some degree, but it, help pursue, hey, just because I can't play, you can still coach if you have an interest and a passion for the game. And that's been something that's been really fun. And I've always, or wherever this expression came from, those that can't play it, coach it. And I think that's kind of where we fit in there, so
Yeah.
Good stuff. So great to hear. And obviously some popular threads that we've talked about quite a bit in these. And I think, what I've picked up the most is we've gone through our own challenges and maybe personal failures, but it didn't, frown on what we ultimately wanted to do. And, I think we've heard some popular things in terms of coaching the girls side of things too, where, man, they want to be coached. I really like how you mentioned they really do celebrate their successes. When I think about the comparison between boys and girls, and let's say hoops, I feel like the girls celebrate them more than the boys do. Boys is just kind of like another thing in a competition. And wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, totally. And my girls kind of get upset when we're not being celebrated, especially at
Yes.
school, because the boys kind of we're a backseat to the boys, even if the boys are having a not so good year and we're having a great year. We're always the backseat, and so my girls get pretty vocal around the schools, like, don't forget about us. We took third. You guys took, stuff like that. And they let people know, so they're proud.
No, I think we get some of those same parallels as well. Lake Stevens, everything has been traditionally about the boys, for the most part, and we've certainly had our success. And I love Mark. Mark does a great job with those guys, and I never want to be in that front with coaches, but the girls will take it upon themselves, like, hey, we can play just as well, if not more competitively than the fellas. Come watch us play. Get to our games and watch us. And I know for both of our programs in our league, I know we both draw real well comparatively to some other schools in our league, respectively. And ultimately, when you think about the growth of the girls' game, let's say in our area, have you seen it change drastically? You think maybe from your experience down at Hazen to maybe your transition up to Snohomish and Glacier Peak, or is it more just a byproduct of location?
I think it's a little bit of byproduct of location.
Okay.
Although, we were a Seamount League when I was at Hazen, which is now
Right.
gone.
Right.
And kind of joined forces with the NPSL and some of the SPSL stuff.
Got it.
So we've kind of joined those Kent schools, which is kind of
Yep.
made things a little bit better for them. My nemesis back then was Kennedy, so I'm kind of glad to see them drop off a little bit.
Yep.
but but yeah, up here there it's just kind of breathes basketball and soccer. I think those two things bode pretty well up here. So there's a lot of opportunities for kids to play, and it doesn't have to be AAU or select. There's every little community has their Boys and Girls Club and their SJAA and just opportunities. So kids are playing basketball, and there's opportunity for them no matter how much money a family has, to pay for that. There's an opportunity, and it's just good to see kids playing.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes we get, we see this a lot, I think, with parents and certainly our club basketball, and for that matter, AAU basketball. You never know, even if it's SJAA or Boys and Girls Club for us in Lake Stevens, you don't know which young ladies are going to pan out eventually at the middle, or for that matter, the high school level. I mean, some of them are so, diamonds in the rough that by the time they're a sophomore, junior in high school, they might not have been remotely close, in fourth or fifth grade. But the fact that they had the opportunities to be able to continue to play and develop, and regardless of where you are economically, that opportunity is out there. And I know we've certainly seen the benefits of that. And again, maybe to some degree, it's because it's a byproduct of the area that we live in right now. It's a popular place to play hoops, and it kind of feeds itself. And then again, the opportunities have been there, and I think that's been really critical for the girls' game. So certainly a good point. And then I would agree with the location too. Obviously where you live, if it's kind of the thing to do, becomes more popular in that respect, and so on and so forth.
And you don't know where your talent's going to come from, because I remember my daughter just graduated this last year and played for me.
Sure.
And was really my 12th man, and I've told her all along this, hey, this is probably what's going to end up happening. But when you look at her class as an overall group,
right,
she's playing in the Snohomish side, not the Glacier Peak side, because that's the we live in. And so when Snohomish was playing Glacier Peak, and I got to see kind of the talent that's there.
Yep.
When I got to the Glacier Peak side, and so did Sydney, it was, she was only one of 5 seniors that ended up playing. And here he had all these 4th, 5th graders, and everybody thought their kid was the best, and this and that. And I kind of knew where she stood all along, but she stuck and fought for positions, and made her way to the varsity squad, her senior year, and was a great teammate. But you could look at a 4th grade class and say, oh, that's the best player, that's the best player. And people do that all the time, but it doesn't matter. Let's wait and see what happens.
Interesting you mentioned that too, because if I was to take this past seniors group, on the Lake Stevens side, when they were freshmen, man, there was probably 11 or 12 of them that, they were all kind of all over the place. And then to think what we got to by the end, we graduated 3, out of that collection of, and there were some pretty talented young ladies that were like, man, they're going to really help us by the time, and then they went on to play soccer or volleyball or whatever it may be. But those that kind of have struck to it, and, a couple of our kids that maybe weren't big minute kids for us, like Reagan was, the stories they can tell to be a program kid, to kind of continue to, stay with it and be a part of it. They wouldn't have stuck out back in 4th or 5th grade, but they love the game, ultimately. So no, that's really good. Good reflection on that. So let's talk Glacier Peak hoops. So we haven't had a chance to really sit down and dig in, obviously, because this COVID thing happened a week later. Although you guys were kind of in the midst of it, kind of what are we going to do next year? And I know I've heard you on record say that you felt like the state tournament was impacted by it in terms of attendance and so on and so forth. Give me some reflection on this past season for you guys.
Yeah, it actually kind of goes back the season before, where I think we kind of fell off the radar. We took second 4 years ago, and then we made regionals the year after that, and then it was kind of like, okay, well, Glacier Peak's back to normal, and then the year before last, we made a great run, took 4th, and I think kind of caught everybody by surprise. It was probably one of our better overall seasons, and so the expectations for this year, it was already, hey, we got to be back in this mix because we only have 2 seniors. And it's funny though, even though you only lose 2 players, the impact is different, and we're a different team. But the whole season, we had our eye on the prize.
Yep.
We knew what we wanted to do and what it took to get there, and we got there, and of course we go to Spokane, and again, I feel like I'm in Spokane. I was just buy a house over there.
Yeah, exactly. A rental.
And drive back with our tail between our legs again, and but hey, we're still in the mix, and let's go. But now we're on the same side with Woodinville and Chihuahua and Camas, who you guys know, and but hey, just go out there and play, and whatever it is, and then you have the COVID thing in the back of everybody's mind. And I said, until they tell us no, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
So we just kind of let that dictate how things went. Let's go play ball. And we had the 9 o'clock slot, which I love the 9 o'clock slot. Because you wake up, you don't have time to think about it anymore. And that's where girls basketball sometimes they get over mental. And I think that's what happened with our Central Valley game. Was just so long before we had to play, and they kept thinking about it. There, you see them just But I wake the girls up, and they're half asleep, and we get to the gym. We start to wake up, and it's like we play. We don't have to worry about anything for the rest of the day.
You just go,
and not worry about it. So, love the 9 o'clock game. But yeah, I thought overall tournament went well. Woodinville handled us. We lost really close in districts to them. In
tough
overtime.
One. Tough one.
And we had a great game plan going into it, and thought if we made a little tweak here and a little tweak there, maybe it'll work. Well, my tweaks were terrible, and we got it handed to us, and so that's how it goes sometimes. But came back the next day and played Union, who I've become really good friends with, Gary Mills, and that was just a fun game to play to end our season. So happy with the result.
Well, those are always fun too. I know we've mentioned a couple of times on here, you get to trophy day, and it's much like I think it was us and Issaquah in that, 3rd, 4th place game districts. It's so loose and free. There's no stress there. You've made it to that final day, and you're going to walk home with something, win or lose, and kids get to go out and have fun and enjoy it. And while it's disappointing, you didn't get to the final, or for that matter, win a state title, that you're still coming out of there with something. And I think ultimately get to celebrate your season, regardless. You've made it to that final day, the last day that anybody can play. And when you've done that, wherever you quote unquote place, that's a success, man. It's something that your kids are going to, I think they'll remember those. They'll remember, hey, we placed here. They might not remember what place, but they're going to remember the day and the experience. And, you got to celebrate that as much as maybe us as coaches want to, walk home with that gold ball in our hands. Ultimately, you've got to have a lot of things, break your way to be able to do that, ultimately.
Yeah. One of the things I tell my team a lot, especially playing on the last day, is, hey, you can end your season with a win. There's 3 teams in our league that get to end their season with a win. That actually account for something, not talking to bottom feeders who had to play at the end of the game or end of the season, and that was someone wins.
Right.
It's still great for that program, but for us, hey, we can end our season with a win and keep a winning streak going. We're starting one before the season even starts. But I always point up to the rafters and all the banners in schools and in Glacier Peak in particular, and say, what do you want? 10, 15, 20 years from now, you're going to walk into this gym with your kids, and you can point up and say, hey, we helped put that up there. I put that up there. Let's go look at, there's a picture of me with our trophy, So always telling the kids, what do you want to leave? Because you're going to come back here and visit someday and bring your kids and family, and you can show them that you were a bigger part of, what's going on. So
sure. Now you guys have had certainly a decent amount of success in your tenure there. Is there, and we talked about this, I think with Jeff, is there a fine line with maybe the history of your program and referencing that to your current group, whatever group that may be, and maybe not talking about it because it's history and maybe kind of keeping your eyes moving forward? Is there like you feel like there's a balance to kind of go back and forth? I mean, ultimately we do the same thing, I'm like, hey, what's happened there has happened, and again, we have a standard of success. I think that speaks for itself in terms of, what it tells your kids and how we expect to play. But ultimately they get to kind of create their own legacy or history too.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a balance of maybe kind of using that as a motivation and kind of giving them their own identity? What do you think?
I do talk about past teams, and say, hey, I mean, it all started our very first year. I mean,
Sure.
and I have the news clipping. We were supposed to finish 7th out of 8 teams.
Yeah.
I don't know if we weren't picked to finish 8 out of 8, but we were picked to finish
yeah.
And we finished 3rd. And, and your rivalries changed throughout the thing. And that at that time it was Meadowdale. We got them
right
at the end of the season. We beat them once, but
sure.
It was one of those like, hey, this started our tradition because it was new, and we want to be competitive and
Yep.
and not win every game. I don't expect us to win every game, but what are we going to do this year? What are we going to do this year?
Sure.
It's all about you guys, but don't forget we have a history, and because of that history, people are already targeting you.
Yep.
And they might not like us, and that's okay because we're going to go do what we got to do.
Sure.
So
now, before I get into kind of maybe what you guys and Glacier Peak basketball is all about, kind of maybe a little bit of your vision or your philosophy for your program, let's talk about our rivalry a little bit. I consider it, I guess, a rivalry at this stage because we're and you still have Snohomish. There's no doubt there's going to be something about, being in town and so on and so forth. And having gotten to watch that a few times, it's awesome. I love just being a spectator for that. But in our league, we've become friendly rivalries. We've talked about together about, we've appreciated being able to get to know each other a little bit better and being able to share and go back and forth. And I think a mutual respect, there's no doubt. But what do you think, ultimately from your perspective makes our games, what they've become? Do you have any idea, any perspective on that? What do you think?
Yeah, it's because you're in my way. But that's kind of how all the rivalries go.
Sure.
From our first years, it was Meadowdale. They were in our way, and then after Meadowdale, it turned into Shorecrest because they were in our way.
Yeah.
And then it turned into the Everett Edwards era. They're in my way, and then Joe's in my way with Arlington.
Yeah.
And then we switched leagues and classification, and now you're in my way and I'm in your way.
Sure.
And that's what kind of makes it the rivalry. But I think the other part is the respect.
Yeah.
That goes along with it. All those other teams that I just mentioned, and Snohomish is in there too, but we've never been in the same league. It's just across rivalries. We've never had to play each other for a game that meant anything besides just a W or an L.
Sure.
So we haven't had the rivalry that means something in terms of stats, or placings,
or championships, or placings. Yeah. Sure.
So that's still a rivalry. It's just different. But our rivalry, it's, hey, you're in my way, and I'm in your way, and our teams know it. And what I do like is our teams. We battle. I mean, they've been blood on the court, but at the before the game, I kind of have to tell my team, I'm like, no, you don't have to go sit with them right now. And after the game, I mean, they're buddy, and
yes, they are.
It kind of comes back to the year we were at Gonzaga together.
Yes.
And it was the NBA championship.
Yes.
It was the Cavs versus
Game 7. Game 7. I still have it on my DVR right now.
And we were supposed to play each other.
Yeah.
We play each other enough? Do we really want to go watch?
Exactly.
And then we took both our teams into the back room at Gonzaga and turned on TV and watched the NBA championship together.
Yeah, that was great. It was, and that's the way that, I mean, I would certainly consider that maybe a powder keg for probably our relationship to some degree, and some perspective about, we're going to compete like crazy against one another, but at the same time we can respect each other. And I think our kids, our young ladies, need to see that respect between the two of us. Like if there's animosity between you and I, then all of a sudden that gets in their business, and kind of ruins, I think, what ultimately we want this high school experience to be all about for them, ultimately. And
right. There's always been fun banter between the two between your girls and my girls, but but it's never been hateful or
Right.
hurtful. It's just kind of they're friends, and they
Sure.
should be,
Yep.
because you got to respect who you're playing on the other side. Otherwise, you're gonna have no one to play.
Yeah.
So
Yep. No, I agree with that entirely. It's been fun. Joe and I kind of talked about our thing because we certainly consider ourselves. Why we try to play each other as much as we possibly can, because it goes back to when they were 4A, several years ago for quite a while, and certainly our state experiences as well. But just that competitive nature, the ability to, your kids are going to get up and want to compete like crazy. But we also talked about, that, hey, we're going to sit together before the game between him and I and you and myself, and we're going to chat it up and talk about hoops. We're going to talk about life and how things are going. And one of the funny things he had mentioned was his young ladies kind of get grumpy about, hey, how can you talk to him right now? We got a game to get ready for and that kind of thing. He's like, hey, we're just people too. We're checking in on each other. But when the ball goes up, yeah, we're gonna compete like crazy. I want to beat him. He wants to beat me, and that's how it goes. And that's okay. That's okay to have that. But there's that respect, as you said. There's that respect between both of us and our staffs, and certainly our players, and it's healthy. And I think that's important to have that in there. So
yeah, and you mentioned earlier about the Westco versus the Seamount or whatever when I was at Hazen, and I think
right,
that's what I really like about Westco is the coaches.
yeah,
Uh, there are a lot of really good coaches around, and you
yep,
can sit down with all of them before the games
yep,
and chat about things and just life in general. And there's we just have great coaches in our league, so
yeah,
love all those conversations because we're all, like I said earlier, students of the game and just
yeah.
trying to learn. So
I think one of those things too that I struggle with as a young coach, especially probably my first 4 or 5 years, is I felt like I had to like earn other coaches' respect. And maybe this is just me totally overthinking this because I was young and naive and probably didn't know any better. And so I felt maybe like, I couldn't go across to another coach and say hello, and I had to kind of get over myself a little bit being so hung up on that. Like I felt like I needed to take that initiative and introduce myself and ask how things were going, and like, okay, I got to get out of that mental box I'm in right now and making this maybe a bigger deal than I need to. And like you said, we have so many great coaches, people that are willing to help and want to see you be successful. And I know as I've gotten to 6 through 10 years and now 11 through 15, every year I feel like, man, I don't know what I was thinking those first few years. Like, what am I doing? I would look at my younger self as a coach and think, what are you doing right now? Like, come on, be
yeah,
personable. And that's a little bit of my introvert coming out. Maybe when I was maybe insecure is probably more what that was all about. But man, I totally agree. There's so much of and now it's kind of flipped where I feel like, man, I need to make sure I reach out and want to be, a resource and helpful. And how can we keep people connected and engaged? And because it's always, I think to some degree, it's probably always been there. I just maybe wasn't willing because maybe I didn't feel like I had earned others' respect. I don't know. Maybe that's just me overthinking that.
well,
Uh,
just having not been a real basketball player,
yeah, and then maybe that's it. Maybe that's
I
some
feel
of
like
that.
yeah, I feel like I got something to prove, and so
Sure. No, that's fair.
I'm going to go out there and work hard, and uh, yeah, my victories on as a coach
Yeah.
are those are my victories. So
No, no, that's a great
my legacy.
point. Maybe there's a little bit of that there too. We've certainly obviously got that background to some degree, and you've got that element, and maybe that's something to prove. I like that because I've mentioned this a few times on there. I got turned down 7 times before I finally got a head job. And boy, those first 5 years, that's probably where a lot of that's rooted. Like, man, I've got things to prove, and I'm going to show all these other schools that you should have hired me. Ultimately, and
Right.
maybe there's a little bit of that in there. That's some good reflection. I like that. Um, when we think about Lake Stevens and Glacier Peak, do you think that stuff carries itself over to parents and communities and so on and so forth in terms of what it means to maybe you and our kids?
I hope so, because I think we represent ourselves really well on the court. I mean,
Sure,
obviously the game is the battle,
sure.
but uh, but everything before the game and everything after the game is very cordial, and there's a lot of respect that goes on. And
Yep.
uh, before there was a big rivalry, you know, and the first few years of coaching Glacier Peak, we'd go there, and I knew our fans were kind of, and then even your kind of, like,
sure. No, yeah.
To be. And the more I coach, the older I get, the more I feel like now I'm at least the same age as the parents, if not older than the parents. Yep. Whereas before I was younger than the parents, and I felt like you have to respect your elders, and these are the ones telling you kind of saying stuff, and it's like, oh, I guess they're right because they're older than me.
Yeah.
But now I can kind of tell them how it's going to be.
Right.
And I think that's kind of changed some of the parents and the fans.
Sure.
I can tell them. I've yelled at parents during the middle of a game. It's like, you're not going to do that, otherwise leave.
Yeah.
I've called a timeout before, turned around, walked up, and said, hey, that's not going to happen.
Well, what's interesting is it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's so true. Because one of the first things when I got hired, first year, maybe even two, that I got from officials was, hey, I know you're brand new to this, but one of the things that we want to see kind of fixed with your community is your parent group. He goes, I know you're walking into this, but hey, if you can make that a priority or a focus, because believe it or not, those things impact games. If officials are coming in and your parents are just nuts, shoot, it could be the difference of a game somewhere, or a call here or there. And that had happened more than that. Wasn't just like one official maybe who had a little bit of vendetta. It was kind of a popular thing. I'm like, and I actually was really appreciative that they had let me know that it had been kind of a history and an issue. I was like, okay, I gotta make that a point of emphasis for my focus and what we're trying to do. And again, like you said, being younger and then being a little bit older, that was a little bit more of a delicate conversation. Whereas now I feel like we've gotten better to some degree, and now I'm certainly not afraid to go approach it with a parent or a group of fans and say, hey, this isn't going to help us, first of all, and you're not helping your kid's cause by being outspoken here. So, but I love that angle, if you will.
It does help having some success in both of our programs to be able to do that. Because if you're not having the success in a program, that does make it a little more difficult.
Right.
You haven't proved anything. At least I feel like with our programs, we've proved ourselves that we know what we're talking about.
Well, and I think, and I would assume you have this too. It's pretty clear with our young ladies. We have, the expectations that we have in terms of how they carry themselves on the floor, towards officials, coming off the floor. Little things that you and I would notice as coaches that maybe the community doesn't, or as coaches that you kind of have standards. You sit first spot of the bench when you come out, if there's something I need to say, and then you can move. Timeouts, you're all tuned in, just all those things that add up. There's that expectation, and that hopefully trickles over. But it does. It's that, okay, we've had some success, we've done well, and now it's just kind of, that's the fabric of what we do. It's just what you expect, if you will. So, and it trickles itself out to families and spectators, and you hope that kind of trickles out into the community too, and they get that respect there. When we think about Glacier Peak basketball, what's your vision for your program? If I was an outsider and didn't know about Glacier Peak basketball, what do you hope others get out of it after they watch maybe you play or see you guys?
It's one of the things I talk about in practice. If our practices aren't going well, or if I feel like it's kind of loosey-goosey, I said, hey, what if someone came in here right now and looked at our program? I go, and they're a good basketball player. Do you think they would want to be part of what we have going on here? Or do you think they would be like, I think there's something else better out there because we're not getting the job done at this point?
Sure.
So it's kind of one of the things I for our program, I really hope people see us as competitive and well run, disciplined, hardworking, fun. There's got to be a fun part of it as well. And I think we try to carry ourselves, as a respectful program on and off the court. I hope people see us as all those different things. I don't want to be. I try to tell the kids, I go, we want to be confident in what we're doing, but don't come across cocky, because that's just, but there's a fine line between that too. You want to be confident.
Yep.
You come across cocky, people aren't going to like you and trying to perceive ourselves. So, let's be confident in everything that we do, and let's, we don't have to overanalyze things. If we've been putting in the time right, we'll be fine. And so I hope people kind of see us that way. I think people do. I think people who kind of know about us feel that. I don't
Sure.
know other people. I mean, see,
No,
I think that's pretty good though.
yeah, no, I think it's really good. I think, um, especially maybe teams that aren't maybe from our area, when if they were to look at your program, that's certainly going to be the perspective. Is that do you get that same vibe? Like I wanted to come back to this too. Do you get that same feeling from people in Snohomish? I mean, when you think about you know Ken and his group consistently, I think we all have a pretty good perspective on how well coached they are, how hard they play, how prepared they are. And it's never an easy one, regardless of the talent level that he has
Right.
in his program. It is never at any juncture ever. And
No,
so
yeah.
what does it look like in your community? Do you still get that same? Do you feel like, maybe the Snohomish community gets that same feel for you guys?
When we split,
It was rough.
we didn't like each other.
It was rough.
It
Yeah.
was it was rough.
Yeah.
Uh, Ken and I have always been pretty close. I mean, I coached underneath him, and
Yep.
so he was
Yep.
one of my mentors overall. And we knew from day one we wanted to play each other, but it wasn't going to be a hateful rivalry. We wanted to play each other because we knew we can make each other better,
Yes.
and we can make the game fun, and we've been trying to kind of make uh, kind of like a college night sort of atmosphere
Yeah.
where kids are chanting and hooping and hollering, and and this kind of, and we keep getting kind of shut down on some of these things because it's
Yep.
not the WIAA sportsmanship thing or the Westco play. What does it say on our banners in there? It's like
Play fair, play.
loud, something like that. Be proud, but
Yeah.
um, it's it's on the verge of unsportsmanlike because it's
Yeah.
chanting and distractions, but we kind of wanted to make that atmosphere just between the two of us because we think it'd be
Yeah.
fun for everybody. And they had when we played this last year, they had a student section that had like a SP or ESPN
Yeah, little
little
sports center thing. Yep.
sports thing. So Ken and I went down there and played along with them, and they were interviewing us, and we're talking trash to each other. It's just fun. So
Yeah.
I think between Snohomish and Glacier Peak, the last few years, at least on the girls' side,
Yes.
it's been good rivalry because in the summer we've done summer camp stuff with them,
Yep.
and every year he asks us if we'd help run the tournament up on the Glacier Peak side, and so we do, and I appreciate that,
Yep.
and we get our kids to play against each other and with each other, and it's kind of like with us,
Yep. Yep.
we got a triangle of Lake
Yeah.
Stevens, Snohomish, Glacier Peak. They're working pretty well together.
No, I will say as a spectator the last couple of years, thankfully we haven't had a game on those particular nights. It's been, at your guys' place 2 years ago and then Snohomish this year. Man, it's just a different feel, just from a traditional high school game. And again, you can tell everyone is invested in the outcome, and you can tell your kids are both sides are so nervous as a result of it. They just have that little bit of an anxiety that kind of tends to come with like playoffs or maybe big games between us or whatever it may be. But there is something different. You can genuinely tell, and that's what makes it enjoyable. I'm so glad I just get to spectate and watch, and I think that's what's, Mike already had said this from Gonzaga Prep. One of his big focuses was about the experiences, for our young ladies. His number one goal is he wants to try to make it as great an experience for his kids as he possibly can. And I certainly think when I reflect and think about high school girls basketball, you guys provide that, with your rivalry night. And again, I don't think anybody within the community is going to be grumpy about what you guys are trying to do. I mean, shoot, if it's coming from an outsider, who cares what they've got to bring to the table? You guys have some proper perspective. Your kids are going to I think that's something we need to embrace because we're losing that. One thing I mentioned with Brett McLeod up in Burlington on our episode a few weeks ago. I coached boys hoops up there for a couple years before I got the Lake Stevens job. And one of the things that I missed, and it's actually what I remember about high school basketball at MP, which is where I went to school, is it used to be the thing to do on Friday nights. It was the thing to do on Friday nights. And, shoot, in Snohomish County, we don't get that vibe as much anymore. There's too many other things to do, just in this area. But there's still, I genuinely believe this. You go across that county line into Skagit, Whatcom County, go watch a Linden Christian or Berlin. There's still that, hey, this is the thing to do,
Right.
and you guys provide that. You guys, that's that element that you guys have between, both of your schools and that game, and something that I miss, that I wish our kids got to experience all the time, because it's the way it used to be all the time, so
yeah.
I love it though.
The other thing that's really nice with Snohomish is the last couple of years we've traveled together.
Yeah.
So like this last year we played each other, and then 4 days later we hop on a bus together, drive to Vancouver together.
Nice. Yeah.
Hotel and go play Prairie and Union, and then
That's
drive
right.
back.
Yeah, that's right.
And
which is unheard of, by the way. Who does that? I don't. You'd be hard pressed to find, I think, other programs in our state that do that.
Yeah, and and what was it, 2 years ago, the year we took fourth? Well, we had the 10:30 game. Snohomish had the 9 o'clock game. They were playing. I forgot who they were playing. Oh, I don't remember. But they're playing for the fourth place, sixth place game.
Yep.
And at 9. So I got the girls up early, and we went there and started cheering for Snohomish.
Yeah.
And when we went down on the floor to go in for halftime, talking to the Snohomish coming out, we're cheering for them. We're like, yeah, let's go, let's get them. And we were playing CV, and the CV coach said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "That's our sister school. Why wouldn't we?" He's like, "That just wouldn't happen in Spokane."
Right.
And so Snohomish ended up winning. They took fourth place, which was awesome. And they could have hopped on the bus and gone home, but they stuck around and cheered for us against Central Valley. And they were the loudest fans we had. And we were getting our butts kicked and turned it around and pulled out the victory somehow. And when we're done, we took both our teams with our fourth place trophies and
love it.
Said, "Here's our community." So
that's exactly what I'm after. It just speaks to it. Early there was that animosity when there was that split. But over time it's kind of meshed us up. And obviously we're talking about girls basketball. I can't necessarily say that for, I don't know if you can with your other sports and athletic programs, but at least on the girls basketball side of things, man, traveling together, support, that's a huge thing. Let's talk about run and jump a little bit. So, it seems like we've struggled with it. We have reasonable success with Joe and his crew, although I don't equate 30 turnovers as reasonable success. We probably just got lucky. But you had mentioned it was kind of personnel based. Why the shift? Is it just for that reason?
2 years ago, we really started to put that in. We've always kind of done some pressing, but not really the run and jump. And then the personnel was, God, this could be really good if we could read the court and when to go. And we still have a hard time reading. The girls have a hard time reading it. It's so much easier for me to look on the side and see where we're at and go.
Yeah.
People start to go, and they do a good job of rotating and recovering. But, it's something we've had to work on. And I got really fast kids.
Yeah.
It helps having really fast athletic kids who can see everything that's going on and pretty high basketball IQ and get to those cutoff spaces when you can see someone else panicking. And we didn't do it as much this last year until later on in the season. And we pick and chose opportunities. Like
I felt like you guys were a little more selective with it this year. If I was to kind of take, the amount of film that I've watched you guys this year compared to a year ago, you seem more selective. So I wasn't know if it was by choice, if it was maybe lack of depth per se, maybe a combination of both.
It was a little bit of both. There were times where if I made substitutes, our run and jump personnel actually got better.
Sure.
Rather than with some of my first starters. And so it was way, and we're not. And then all of a sudden I make some subs. It actually benefited us because other teams are making subs and they don't have their starters out there, and I'm putting in my second squad who actually run and jumps better.
Yep.
And so it just worked. And then against you, I was waiting for you to that first game where it was close, and then we kind of pulled away. But I was just waiting for you to make a couple subs, and you finally did. So
yeah, well, that's where we struggle. If we go back, let's go back to last summer. So we saw you guys at Edmonds in the semifinal.
Right.
And tell me if I'm wrong. You can totally tell me if I'm wrong. So you were subbing just in fives, and it seemed like in just 3 or 4 minute increments, 4 or 5. And I would certainly say with that second group, and granted they were probably different personnel than when you saw us during the season, but there was more kind of that loose and free. And I'm going to gamble like crazy compared to maybe that first group who was maybe a little more structured out of it. And where you guys, I think, found the most success, certainly against us, is with that loose and free group. You might give up a layup here or there, but the byproduct was more turnovers on our end because of the risk taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what we learned from state the year before, we did a great job of turning people over.
Yeah.
And we could get the ball, but we were so crazy, we turned it right back over.
Sure.
I mean, that was our Tijuana game where I think we had 31 turnovers and they had 35.
Yep.
And we forced probably all 35 of them, but we made our own 31. It was like, we got to slow down a little bit. So we can turn someone over, but we got to keep possession of the ball. And so that was kind of the take for this year. It's like, okay, we'll turn people over, but let's keep possession of the ball. And we don't have to turn them over 30 times. Let's turn them over 10 times, but make sure we get 10 good opportunities from those times. So that was kind of the take this year. And then pick and choose based on the personnel we had on the floor versus the personnel that they were up against. So we really paid a lot of detail, or paid a lot of attention to the details of what our matchups were.
Right. So more matchup driven than maybe you have been in the past.
Yeah.
With that. Okay. So let's go back to Kayla Watkins' years. And you did some pressing with them. I mean, you still had some personnel up front that could certainly scoot.
Mm-hmm.
Were you more driven like 2-2-1 stuff with them though than maybe run and jump?
That was our big one, was a 2-2-1, and occasionally that diamond press, 1-2-1-1.
Right.
And it was kind of, let's get Kayla reading the side and let's drop the other person off the back end, just to protect that over the top. And we'll let Sammy, who's just a long point guard and, a 6-foot point guard who's just long and athletics up front, where she can channel and move people where we wanted to go. And so we'll still put some pressure on you, but it was a slowed down pressure and make you think about where you're going to pass. And we're just sitting there waiting for things to happen. Now with the run and jump, we're gonna come after you, and then you think you're gonna have something coming free and open behind you, but you're not, and we're gonna get you at that point.
Well, and that's always been kind of our number one. Our practice point with that with you guys is always, it's coming from behind. You can't just feel like you're gonna dribble away up the sideline and feel like, oh hey, I'm in the clear here. That's probably the largest risk for us, certainly, and I would imagine most teams is that direction, whether it's with Aaliyah, more times than not, it's Aaliyah coming that way. In fact, I think, Joe and I talked about your guys' summer game at Snohomish 2 years ago, or not last summer, I suppose.
Yeah.
Where late in the game, that's how you guys pulled that out. You had, I think, back-to-back steals that way, coming from behind. You trapped, I think, Haley in the corner and half-court corner, and Aaliyah took it and laid it in, and it just was so persistent. But again, I think even then, you guys were pretty selective with it. It wasn't a full summer outlet with it, but when you guys needed it and had to have it, boy, it got you what you needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I got to get the like the Kaylas and the people playing the half court and stuff like that. I'm really trying to get them to be cornerbacks.
Sure.
Of a football game, playing a zone cornerback, and we're reading eyes and we're reading personnel, and when the ball's in the air, or as the ball's getting ready to be in the air, you got to get there before the ball does, and get there quick. So.
Have you ever run into the problem with those with this transition to run jump, and maybe those cornerbacks, if you will, where you need them to be more risk takers? Like maybe there's that little bit of that fear factor. Like, I don't know if I want to go get that. Whereas I'd rather see you gamble and miss just because all of a sudden you've got that speed. Have you run into some of those issues?
Yeah, it's actually the opposite. My front court, the ones putting the pressure on the ball, they're
Right.
the ones gambling more, and their job is to keep everybody in front.
Sure.
Keep them in front, keep them in front, keep them in front. We'll get them from behind if you can keep them in front. But they're the ones gambling, and then next thing you know, then I need my backcourt to be a little more conservative. But
Sure.
if my front court's doing the job right, keeping them in front, then they can gamble a lot because it's easier for us to recover. So
Sure.
But my guards, they're fast. They just they want the ball. It's like, I don't need you to get the ball. They're going to get the ball. Just be patient.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, being more selective with it, was it a byproduct of, like when you've run into teams that can handle it, and get you in the half court, and was making that transition to being more selective, maybe driven by, getting to the state tournament? Can you translate 4 days in a row of run and jump and having the depth? And I mean, think about, I guess, that week. Did 2 years ago script maybe what this year's focus, did that have an influence on that, do you think?
Yeah, the whole pressing thing actually came back to the first year I came to Snohomish talking to Ken, because when I was at Hazen, we did a lot of pressing and stuff. And everybody likes the pressing game because it's fun and it's exciting. And Ken goes, "You're not going to win a state tournament pressing all the time."
Yeah.
And I think the only team that actually can do that was the Central Valley team with the whole sisters. They pressed all.
I always reference the one team that I think that has had success with it is the Auburn Riverside groups.
Oh yeah,
Adam Barrett's groups. I mean, now granted they were 3-hour practicing it, but it's ultimately the only groups that I really felt like a team that's constantly done it. They seem to be able to do it. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, because a good team will be able to get through it, and
right. Yep.
Or if you have the right guard like Aaliyah, people know better than to try to press right now. Aaliyah's going to go. Aaliyah's going to blow by you.
Yep.
Like our tournament that we had this year, Lincoln came after us with one player, and he's like, "Yeah, get 2 people, get up there." And he goes through, he's like, "Get 3," and Aaliyah's it's like, there are a lot of teams with a lot of talent who can get through a press and can see the floor. And so we just want to be. Let's pick and choose. Hey, we need a quick one right now. They're not expecting it. Let's go get it. Maybe out of a timeout or off of a free throw or something, and then we're only going to do it twice. I always say once in the timeout. I'm like, we're only going to do it once. And I'm like, do it again.
Yeah. That sounds like me. Okay, last time. Last time. That's my famous line in practice. Okay, last time. I swear I say last time 7 times, and it's the last time.
Yeah. So just trying to be selective, I think, is just being more of a mature coach and understanding gameplay a little bit more. Sure. And trying to not sell out your kids all the time because it'll wear them out.
Okay, so let's transition this to practices for you. So I talked to this with Joe because, again, you got to be in shape, got to be fit, got to be able to do it for a long stretch of time to have success with it. And obviously you turn in teams over 25, 30, 35 times, you're having success with it. But, what do practices look like? I mean, he had talked about, I think it was 2014 for them, where, he was playing 5, maybe 6 kids. And by the time they got to the state tournament, they just dead legs. I mean, they were just totally spent. How are you getting your kids fit? Let's rewind that. What's practice look like in November for you guys compared to like January to maybe March? Go with that.
When we start, we're 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Up until probably our first game. And then as soon as we hit our first game, we're 2 hours. And then by the time we get to the end of the season, 4 or 5 games left, we're an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And less is more.
Yeah.
In terms of X's and O's, that's what we need. So for what we actually do, though, early in the season, they're always excited. Yeah, it's a new season. We're going to be great.
Yeah.
And I try to bring them back down to reality, and I work them hard and hobbling around school the next day. Legs are sore, and we'll run them hard for the first couple of weeks. because we got to get in shape quick. The X's and O's parts, we can work on all that thing a little bit later as it goes, but let's get in shape first. So we're not the ones that are dead tired at the end of the game. Maybe we can wear them out. And if that means we have to press, we'll press. We do a lot of 3-on-3 full court, which is
that's exhausting. Yeah,
that's exhausting. 3-on-3 full court, and you can't. I don't let the teams score. If you steal the ball and it's a fast break, you can't score until all your players are across the 10-foot volleyball line on the other side of the court. So you have to sprint, even though you got a fast break. You just can't stand there and wait. You have to sprint back.
So they got to back it out maybe to the 3-point line until they cross, and then they can go attack. And
everybody's got to run. So
like it.
You got to run, and we'll put 20 minutes on the clock, and we play just a 3-point game.
Okay.
So 3 points. As soon as 3 points are on, if you win, you're out, and then if you lose, you stay on.
You stay in. Yeah.
The one tweak I did make is if you lose, I'll let your points carry over, because after a little while,
exhausted. Yeah, no, that's a good tweak though.
Exhausted, and so I'll let the points carry over, so you could actually go into the game 2-0.
Sure.
And you just got to get one, but you're coming against fresh legs, So when you come against fresh legs.
Yeah, let me cut in on this one. So this is good, because let's think about this logically. If I'm that group that got beat and I got to reset back at 0. It's just going to compound itself. Whereas if the tweak is great, so if they're at 2, I'm sure they're going to be tired, but like you said, they're dealing with, a team that's coming out, that's got fairly fresh legs. They get that 1 and score. Now all of a sudden the group that just left is back in, so there's that continuous, I like that. That keeps that turnover going really well. And again, indirectly keeps the conditioning rolling. And
oh yeah. And like I said, we'll do that for 20 minutes. There's times where I'll put 8 minutes on a clock, because that's 1 quarter of basketball.
Yep.
And we'll just do some sort of a fast break drill or a transition drill for 8 full minutes. And after 8 minutes, they're on the side, hands on their knees, and they're dead tired. I go, that's 1 quarter of basketball.
Yeah. Okay. I like the 8-minute idea.
You guys hate it when I pull you out of a game, but you can't even play for 8 minutes right now.
Sure.
So, but I try to do a lot of conditioning with the ball.
Yeah.
But we don't do a lot of line them up and let's run.
Right.
Earlier in the season, a little bit of that just for conditioning's sake, but otherwise it's always with the basketball within a drill.
Interesting, your 8-minute angle, because, most of us will talk about practices. I'm a big, time on the clock, so we're as efficient as possible. And then you'll hear with practice plans and teenagers' attention spans, hey, you got to be moving from one drill to the next, every few minutes, just so it keeps them engaged. You're moving on to something new, keep things cooking. There's no wasted time. But that 8-minute element, do you tell them up front 8 minutes because, hey, we're playing a quarter, or do you wait till the drill's over?
I wait till the drill's over.
Yeah. No, which is great. It gives that. I love that. I love that.
It is. It's 1 quarter. I mean, obviously, it's a lot more stop and go in a real game. The ball goes out of bounds. And fouls and this and that. But there's 4-minute stretches where you're up and down and it's intense, and so.
And your kids have done it, whereas maybe those programs you're like they're sucking wind, waiting for a whistle or a timeout or something of that sort. Shoot, we've against you guys, there'll be a 3-minute stretch and we're just gassed, and I have to use one because we need a blow timeout just to catch our breath and realize we've turned it over 10 straight times and given up 20 points. But
that's when I tell my team, I go, they're tired, let's get them.
Yeah. Really, really good. Let's take the 3 minutes. How many groups of 3 do you have? Do you practice varsity and JV together, or is it just your varsity kids?
Practice varsity JV together. When I make my teams of 3, I try to make it just a team of 3. I really don't want a team of 4 because I want them just to be.
Yeah, no subs.
Yeah, so we can get, about 6 teams.
Okay, perfect. That's where we are too. I like that.
I have 2 courts going, so you have 2 waiting, and as soon as this one, you're on, and
love it.
People are not waiting around for very long, before you get, especially in a 3-minute game or a 3-point game.
I like gosh, what a great thinking about the first few days of tryouts. What a great tryout group. You really want to see kids that can play, are in shape.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a run and jump or a pressure type team that, you'd like to be, preferably, this is going to give you a lot of indicators right up front. You know what I mean?
I've always used it our first day practice.
Yes.
And you could tell right away who's in shape and who's not in shape and who's ready to play and who can suck it up. And
this will be a great ad because we really like our first 3 days of tryouts in terms of what we have planned. It's all live stuff. It gets out of, hey, here's 3 minutes on how many 15-foot jumpers can you make? Hey, it's just game action. Can you play? Ultimately that's what we're trying to get ourselves down to. But that element of just the conditioning piece and things are live, and no, that's really, really good. And that's about the same number that we're at, 18 to 20 traditionally, both groups.
Yeah.
Both courts going, so no one's really sitting and you're rocking and rolling. I like that.
Yeah, and if I have to have a team of 4, I try to make it my JV kids.
Yeah, for sure. That makes total sense. Yeah. No, really good. Speaking of pressure, so new rule this year, 10 seconds in the backcourt. Is it going to encourage you to press more?
It might, Yeah, it probably would have the last couple of years for sure, because I know there were times I got teams in the backcourt for 10 seconds, and that'll be like I talked about earlier when I was talking to the run and jump. My front court needs to keep that those people in front of you. Keep them in front of you. Don't let them get by. Play those gaps, play those zones, because once they get by you, that's when they'll get past that 10-second line. But man, if we can keep them back there for 10 seconds, which I think we can in some cases, we'll try it.
Yeah. Well, it's been one of the big things that's discouraged myself in our program from doing it more is I just haven't felt like – I know there's been certain years we've had personnel that can do it, but I just didn't want to exhaust them come, January, February, and we're trying to make a run in the playoffs, and they're just dead. Because there wasn't the 10-second incentive. Now that this is a part, I mean, you're going to probably see us to give this away. You're going to probably see us do it a lot more than we traditionally have. We tried to do a little bit more this year with groups and different ones, but because that's there now, boy, I'm in. I mean, I feel like there's total incentive now to do it.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. All right, hey, let's get. I know you got to go get to a little golf match. So let's get a couple more questions in here. Golf match, going golfing or whatever have you.
Going golfing, yeah.
I like it.
Very good.
Me neither, but it's fun to do. Statistics wise, are you a big analytics guy?
I love numbers. I would really like to share the numbers with the girls, but I don't very often, especially the negative stuff.
Sure. Do you have some go-tos that you share with them though?
I always talk about rebounds.
Okay.
I try not to talk about points.
Yep.
I try to talk about hustle.
Yep.
Because we kind of keep a hustle stat.
What is that? What does hustle stats look like? Give me some examples that you.
Getting hands on the ball or helping create a turnover. I go, you don't have to create the turnover to get a hustle point, but if you were the person who made the turnover, even though you didn't get credit for it, I mean, those sort of things all count in my book.
Yeah, it's almost like a hockey assist.
Yeah. So
but on the defensive side, if you will.
Right. Just talk about points a little bit, but I don't want that to be the main factor. And I think that's what's been great about my teams the last couple of years is no one ever comes out and it's like, oh, I had so many points this game. My team doesn't even care about points. Maya.
Yeah.
She could care less. Oh, I had how many points? Oh, I had 2. Huh. Okay. Yeah. She doesn't care. Did we win? That's what she cares about.
Bottom line. Yep.
It's like, what are the big stats that will help us win besides points? Everybody knows points are going to help you win games, but one of the stats I talk about a lot is, okay, you know how many points you had in a game. How many points did your player have?
Yes.
Whoever you're guarding. So, because if you had 12 points, but the player you're guarding had 15, you didn't help us today.
Yep.
Because we would lose that game. So, do a better job of keeping track of who you're guarding. And so I will talk about those stats. Hey, we held Reagan to 10 points. And at halftime when we played Chiawana, Talia had 6 points.
Yep.
At halftime, I was like, hey, we as a team are doing a great job on her.
Yep.
We're rotating the people through, and she had 6 points. This girl averages 25 points a game.
Yep.
and we held her to, I think, 14 for the whole game. Those are the kind of stats I like to talk about.
So that's kind of like that sports psychology where, a lot of young kids, teenage kids, the glory, the things that get in the paper are the, points scored and, these huge numbers. But as coaches, it's important for us to kind of reverse that script a little bit and maybe change the motivation to help them become better players as a whole, not just necessarily a scorer. And it's something that I think is so important. And you see this with kids as they get older. When they're younger, it's about scoring points and maybe being a varsity kid. But now as they get older, it's really just about winning. Oh, I got my few points. That's great. But did we win? Are we advancing in the playoffs? And that was certainly challenging. You talk about some of our better players. Reagan certainly a reference. It was so important to get her out of that mode of I don't care that you haven't gotten double figures. What else are you doing? Else are you doing to help us here? Because you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You got to trust that your teammates can help you in those respects. And for that matter, hey, everyone's going to have an off night shooting the basketball. Are you going to still stay invested because you're doing other things? I mean, that's such a huge responsibility for us as coaches to. Especially with certain kids, and hey, that's great you scored 20, but you gave up 24. That's a negative right now for us. You didn't help us at all. How can you? And then of course how about finding roles for your kids if they're a great rebounder but can't shoot outside of 3 feet? Hey, but you got us 12 rebounds. That's something we need.
Yeah, I always have that one defensive player. I mean.
Yep.
Out of my starting 5, I have one player out there who really is not going to score a lot of points, but she's going to stop someone from scoring points.
Yep.
And this last year it was Shay.
Sure.
The year before that, or a couple years before that, it was Nicole Jensen.
Yep.
And, I have, hey, your job is to stop that player.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah.
They average 20 points a game. Go get them.
Yeah. Have fun with it. Yeah. No, it's such a critical thing.
Yeah, and they go get it. They get after it, and then the team recognizes what they're doing and appreciates how hard that person is working to help the team. So it's a role that I try to glorify.
Yep. No, I think it's critical. It's fun actually to reflect on, certain teams, and I'm sure you do this too, but, certain teams that we've had those defensive kids, an Anna Cruz in our program, a Sam Peterson, who ended up coming back to coach with me. Right now for us, it's Chloe Pattison, who, offensively for us is a 5th option, more than like a 4th, 5th option. And, she'll get frustrated because maybe she doesn't score as much as she would like, but we all know, in our program, hey, you've got the toughest kid every night. That's your job. And if we get points out of you, great. And it's not that she can't score. She's probably out of our defensive quote unquote specialists. She's probably the most talented in terms of being able to shoot it and score it. But, it got to a point, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the season where she was really frustrated with, oh, gosh, I'm not scoring, 8 points or 10 points. But what was really cool and what brought it full circle for us is she got, selected as a first team all league player for really being a defensive player. It wasn't about, and so I think for us, it just helped validate, hey, what you're doing is getting recognized, and not just by us, others in our league see it. And moving forward here, we expect her to be able to, score more and so on and so forth. But and that's a little bit of that youth too, being a sophomore, being a freshman, and, you feel like your only influence right now is putting the ball in the hoop. That's not what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to use your soccer skills and athleticism here to take best kids away, do the best that you dang can,
Well, that's part of our awards banquet thing is for our awards banquet, we recognize 3 things.
Yep.
The kids get to vote on the most inspirational.
Yep.
Who's not necessarily the best player out there.
Yep.
The kids get to vote on the best defensive player.
Yep. Got that too.
And then I have my coach's award, who I can give to whoever I feel like I want to give it to. But that defensive award, the last few years, I mean, that's kind of a coveted award for it.
Yes.
They work hard for that. And it's hard to pick because, you got
a lot to do it. Yep.
Madison playing post versus, say Shay, who's guarding a guard. I mean, they're both doing a great job, but it's hard to say who's doing a better job.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But that's all I give. And so rewarding the stuff that doesn't get recognized a lot.
Yeah, no, critical. We do the same thing, and yeah, it has become kind of almost like a little badge of honor.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one that you want. Really good. All right, so last one here, and again, I really appreciate you and thank you for coming on today. This has been good to add to our collection of things. If you had any advice for young coaches who are just maybe getting into the game, if you could reflect on when you got started and where you are now, what are some things that maybe you'd want to share to maybe help them along, maybe a little
Yeah.
faster than you and I as
Yeah.
non-players? If you get anything that kind of sticks out.
You got to get excited about it, and you got to be able to.
Yeah.
You're going to lose some games. I mean,
Yep.
you're going to lose some games, but you are what your whole team is looking at you, and they're going to follow your lead. And however, how hard you're working is how hard your kids are going to work for you. You got to lead by that example. But one thing you're going to have to figure out is how to deal with parents.
Yep.
I think that's kind of the hardest thing, I think, is dealing with parents. It's getting easier again the older I get and the more success we as a program have had. That they believe what I'm saying now, but when I was first starting out, they didn't want to hear what I had to say. They had their own ideas about how good their kids were.
Yep.
One of the things that's helped me is, and I tell my parents during our parent meeting that we have one I have in May before summer starts, and then one in November when the season starts. But I tell them, I go, I have saved every email, every text message, every letter that I've ever received, and the year I retire, I'll get you on board with this too. I go,
you've shared this story with me,
I think I have. The year I retire, I am calling the Herald, the Everett Herald, and Seattle Times, and whoever else, and kind of put out there like, so you want to be a high school coach? This is the crap you're going to have to deal with.
This sounds like a Shawshank Redemption, Prison Break type idea.
Right, but I've saved all those to share with people because we deal with a lot.
Yeah.
And I think if you are going to be a new coach, you're going to have to be able to have thick skin.
Yep.
And you have to take some criticism.
Yep.
And we're already hard enough on ourselves, but to hear someone else tell you that you're worse than what we already thought we were, because the year we took second in state, I got an anonymous letter in my box at school that it was typed, not handwritten, but typewriter typed.
Yep.
And it came in a letter or in an envelope to the school. And it said what a bad person I was. I'm the worst coach in the world. I'm one of the worst things that's ever happened to Glacier Peak as a whole. And how could you not win a state championship when you had 3 Division I players, even though they had 3.
That would be the reason why they had,
But, and it's stuff like that. It just eats at you, and you got to have thick enough skin and know that you're doing the best that you can. And the day that I don't think I'm doing a very good job, or the day that I don't think I'm good enough to do this anymore, I'll get out of it. But I think I do a good job, and I know people still don't think I do, but I do. I do, and I've had confirmation of that from a lot of other coaches, players, and parents. So until I don't think I will, then I'll get out of it. But for a new coach, man, you've got to have some thick skin and be ready for some criticism.
Sure. No, I think I love that you've thrown those things out there, because maybe it's one of those things we haven't talked about much. There's going to be moments where you're going to get tested as a coach, where you might not win as many games as you'd like. For that matter, it could be a combination of things that feed into you having some perspective about, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this thing. But ultimately, you've got to keep that proper dose of perspective that as long as you know that you're doing the right things that are at the benefit for kids, the bad times are going to come and go. But if you stay true to who you are and what you're all about and your principles, I'm sure, at different junctures. I find myself at times, maybe in certain seasons, that I feel like, as much as I should be trying to win as much as possible, and I am. There's no doubt about it. There's been moments where I'm like, man, I really need to stay true to who and what we're all about, because ultimately there's bigger things ahead for us down the road than maybe me caving on a principle or an ideal that I'm centered around here. And I know I've had those thoughts and conversations, with just circumstances like, oh no, I need to stay true to this. There's going to be a bigger benefit to what I'm doing and holding true to, than if I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And maybe temporarily it's better, but in the long run, it probably isn't. And then that thick skin idea, everyone, when you think about the game of basketball, it's like you're on a stage, a platform that, everyone in the stands, or people that are watching, feel like they can do and coach. And, you put yourself down there and the spotlight's on, it's a little bit different profession than what people can do behind a keyboard, or sitting on their couch and in front of their TV. And I think, if you think about high school coaches in particular, not college coaches who get to kind of pick and choose who they want in their program, and not professional coaches, coach professional. You get what you get, and you got all these different circumstances and things that you think you're ready for and you're not. And boy, you've got to really, I think, just be aware of, okay, as long as, you're true to yourself and who you are, and again, your principles, ultimately you're going to find your way through, having that thick skin, not, allowing certain things to bounce off and not getting it. And you've certainly done that. You've, like you said, you're second place here. You get that kind of, garbage coming your way. Goodness sakes. It's just preposterous to even think about.
Yeah. My AD told me I should burn it. And I was like, no way, man, this is a trophy. I'm keeping this one. This is,
yeah. And obviously
right here.
No doubt. No doubt. And I love the idea too, kind of keeping all of it, and hey, you want to be a coach, shoot, title the article that, and go with it. But
yeah, well, and every successful coach that I know of, within our leagues and everything, Everett Edwards, the year that he won state, I go, so easy year this year? He goes, are you?
Yeah.
So much drama with parents, and they think this and that, even though they won state, and you're going, it's too bad. And a coach that just retired who did a great job and just had a tough program was John Bronovich.
Yeah.
That's the type of people who,
yes,
Cascade is not an easy place to coach and have not had very much success, but that guy is true to what he does, and he works so hard for his players, and you can see his players get better throughout the year. And, if you're a new young coach, that's kind of a good person, I think, that a good mentor is John.
What a great reference. Obviously him and being in our league. In fact, he, for those that don't know, he came back and took the job because he felt like those kids needed it, he deserved it. Felt like, and no shot against those that were before him, but just felt like, hey, I need to do something for these young ladies, and just about the game of life. And he wasn't hung up on the wins and losses, about playing the game the right way and being, right in terms of people. And I know you and I really appreciated, honestly, I probably appreciated those games with them more with him as a coach than we have in our careers, because of,
I love, everybody's like, oh, you're going to play Cascade. I'm like, he's going to try to help us out as much as he can. And I'm going to try to help him out as much as he can. And yeah, he came out and he's like, I need you to press us. I'm like, John, I'm not going to press you.
Yes.
No, it's going to make you better. I need you to press us. I'm like, all right, well, you just tell me when you want me to stop, okay? And he's like, keep going. It's 15-0. Keep going.
Yeah. I love it. And that kind of brings it full circle to the whole, coaches idea where, and especially in our league, but I generally feel like it's probably this way all across our state of Washington, because, ultimately girls basketball right now in our state is at such a high level. But ultimately, coaches are out there willing to help you. And I think if we were to bring maybe this question, and certainly kind of the purpose of the podcast, maybe to a head here today, is don't hesitate. John's a classic example. He'd ask us to use timeouts so he could talk to his kids because he's used all 5 of them.
Right.
and we had no problems. We get it. We understand that. But, ultimately, don't hesitate to reach out to individuals that, like, if you have a question, if you love what somebody's doing, anything, there are so many. Don't be so proud like I was my first few years and just being an idiot and, thinking sure there's an internal motivation, but I needed to reach out. That was more me. And granted, I know, with Ken, he was one I felt like I could reach out at any time. I've always kind of said this multiple times, kind of felt like he took the initiative to reach out and kind of, say hello and wish me the best. And he's just been such a great influence, but there are many like him out there that are willing to help you, craft your game and improve as a coach. And ultimately we want to keep you connected to it because we feel like we've got the game at such a high level right now. We want to grow it and improve it and continue to put our kids in situations and experiences they're going to enjoy and, take the game as far as they possibly want. Cause I know that we've certainly got the talent and certainly coaches to do it. So, hey, well, this is great. I really certainly appreciate your time today. And I appreciate you as a friend and respect everything that you've got going over there. I really, really hope for you and for your kids. We got a season up and coming this year. I want to see you bring home a gold ball here and
that'd be nice.
Yeah, represent Wesco well, and hopefully we're not too far away with our own kids here shortly. But it's been a lot of fun, and again, I know that certainly these last few years, it's been a grown respect and admiration for one another, and we continue to make not only, of course, each other better, but our programs better as a result. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it, Randy.